Welcome to Juice It Up. Today is my first podcast release, co-hosted with the wonderful and talented Amy Emerson. My name is Juice Ortiz, and on my show, I focus on the intangibles in life. Seeing the physical results of money or perceived success of others can be discouraging, especially when we compare our lives to theirs. I'm looking forward to discovering many stories from special guests to come, but for now, kick back and consider how your own perception of positivity may or may not be holding you back. Let's juice it up! Because he was talking about that with nutrition and whatnot, but it carries across the whole spectrum of always positive. Be positive, man. Positivity. Be positive. Can't be negative. Like, that's not healthy. So go ahead and play the clip.
Well, I also think, too, that positive mindset needs to be better defined. Well,
let's
think
play.
about it. If someone comes in saying, like, I look great when they don't look like, okay, that's not really body positivity. That's just trying to convince yourself something that you deep down inside don't believe is true, but you don't want to do the work. You just want to say positive things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. You need to really define the positivity part of it.
All right, where's the speaker on your phone? I mean, your car. Is it down under your feet? No, where's the sound come out?
I never thought.
All right, just hit play. Play the clip.
And he wakes up and they go, what should I eat for breakfast? They go, red meat, eggs, and cigarettes. And he goes, what? He goes, no, it's all good for you. He goes, everything we thought was bad for you. It was like great for you. It's like chocolate, have some chocolate cake. It was like, it's such a great scene.
Well, they're right about red meat.
Yes, some of it's correct, right? Do you think the sugar industry, because they're behind a lot of the fat activism stuff.
Are they really?
Oh, yeah. So if you look at it, a lot of the people that go, listen, there's no difference. Because, they just had this article, the LA school district was like, don't tell kids that, like, junk food's bad because it's classist and racist or whatever. It's insanity. Like, don't tell them there's any difference between foods.
It's so crazy.
And what... and it's all linked to this, like, be always body positive, no matter what. And a lot of that is backed by, like, Nestle.
Well, I know there was some body positive people that were on social media that they found out were getting backed by Nestle or one of those companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were promoting the idea that there's no difference in foods and there's no junk food and it's all about your mental health. And
and you're mentally healthy, apparently eating just ice cream on a couch.
But it's all it's so unscientific, and the fact that...
So that's what I was getting at with, he makes a great point with what's driving physical, nutritional health in our culture and country today. And it's so easy because it's literally physical comprehension of unhealthy people being glorified as healthy because they are mentally positive about their physical health. And that carries through to beyond just nutrition in our physical bodies, where people are saying, oh, you have to be positive. It's almost like positivity is being worshipped in our culture today, and that's unhealthy. It's wrong.
I agree. I think the lie is if you speak positive words, all the things that you want to happen are just going to magically happen. And right now we're in a time where they say manifestation is what you need to do. You need to manifest yourself into this healthy body that you want, but it's just a cop-out because people are not realizing there's a lot of work that needs to happen. And I think it was Joe Rogan said, or no, it was Tim Dillon.
What's the guy's name?
Tim Dillon.
Tim
So
Dillon.
Joe Rogan.
This is from the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yes.
It's episode what?
330.
330. He has Tim Dillon on as a guest.
Yeah, so he's saying, mentally positive people are the ones sitting on the couch eating ice cream and doing nothing. So it's not teaching you you get positivity by the actions that you take. Okay, you have to take action and then you get that positivity.
But the problem is they're not acknowledging reality of, oh, I'm depressed, sitting on a couch, eating my ice cream or whatever the situation is it's culturally it's unhealthy, or at least in the public eye, it's unhealthy to acknowledge if you're depressed or acknowledge if you're sad. Kind of like what we were talking about the other night with the 5 stages of grief. Is people enter whatever the grief that is, whether it's I have to do homework, or someone died, or I lost my job, or whatever, my girlfriend or wife or whatever did whatever. Like, you have that initial moment that starts that grief process, and trying to latch on to positivity and avoiding reality by, quote, staying positive is actually hurting you from getting to acceptance.
Well, it's not possible. It's not physically and mentally possible. In fact, they say the thing that keeps you smarter are not all those brain games. It's, I mean, education helps, but really what keeps you positive and staying sharp in your later years is exercise, specifically cardio exercise. More and more research is coming out that's your antidepressant pill right there.
Okay, that's good, because that's a remedy to help get through that grieving process.
But I'm saying, if you're not doing anything, if you're just sitting, your body is telling you this is not correct. So you have to work twice as hard to stay positive, and then you get more depressed because you're not feeling better.
Right, but what I'm saying is that physicalness, what you're talking about, is indicative of every realm in which we live. So, like, if I'm going to go talk to my boss and I'm going to tell him, you know what, this is what I'm frustrated with, and this is what I think is not good, like, I don't know how many times I heard my athletic VP when I was coaching in San Diego say, dude, you can't focus on the negative stuff. You have to be positive. Be positive, man. Be positive. Like, that right there, we have to change the way we look at life and working together to accomplish whatever goals we are, and accept as leaders, as followers, as doers, as accomplishers, as whatever we do, we have to acknowledge reality. And the reality may be, you know what, right now we have horrible players. Right now, all of our players are on food stamps. Right now, we're at the lowest. Right now, we just lost these people to whatever corporate buyout. Right now, this is where we're at. And you know what? We might not be able to see anything positive.
I think that's when you reframe the positive. Say, okay, reality, face it, this is happening. How can we use this as an opportunity to change course and bring it to a more, I don't want to say positive again for the umpteenth time, but
right, exactly.
Way. Yeah, but
and so,
there's a way, but okay, so I got fired twice in a matter of 2 months, and that sucked. That really sucked. So I could have sat in bed, curled up, not looking for jobs, and I ended up finding my dream job because I believe that's where positivity comes in. Positive thought, like, okay, I know my skill sets. I know I'm capable of doing this. I just have to keep looking. And it was
you didn't just embrace the positivity. Like,
yes, you had
also
to lean into the suck,
yeah.
But in order, you cannot reframe the situation to a positive until you embrace the suck that is happening.
And that's what I'm saying. Too many people in our society, and it's probably being controlled by mass media and like what they were saying in the physical situation.
Too, can do a lot.
Right. So it's being controlled by people and TV and movies and just society, Hollywood, blah, 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 blah. How we should be thinking, and that part's not being the part which you just said about accepting or leaning into the suck is not being communicated. We're only getting stay positive. And so that's what I'm saying.
Sorry.
I don't know what that was. That's what I'm saying is I can understand why you're responding how you're responding, because we don't want the pendulum to swing back to the other side. But to get this pendulum swinging back away from the extreme positivity, we need to get the understanding of leaning into the suck up high enough so people can start accepting that.
And leaning into the suck can be a positive thing too. It can lead to a positive result. Again, we can't be thinking all the time, what can I get positive out of this? Because when you're leaning in the suck, if you're telling yourself, oh, this is a positive thing, you're lying to yourself because it sucks. I see what you're saying, but I slightly disagree because I think, as the Bible says, find joy in the Lord. There's always an opportunity for joy no matter what.
Joy isn't positive, though.
I think it alludes to something positive.
It's not positivity. Joy is the fullness of everything from the extreme positive to the extreme negative and everything in between. So, it goes beyond, it transcends positivity and embraces everything. It's fullness. Joy is fullness.
Okay, so looking at scripture, it says, do not worry about tomorrow because today has enough worries of its own. And God says, have faith, find joy in Christ. I think that God does want us to say, okay, here's the positive in this. This sucks, but I know that God has something good for me in store, and this needs to happen in order for that to occur.
Well, there's a couple things you can pull from that, and I want to zero in on the worry, because if you just settle with don't worry about your future because today has enough worries, that right there is a statement you can understand that, okay, it's not about being positive. It's about handling what I have on my plate right now, which isn't always fun, which isn't always positive, because there are worries to take care of today, which right there, if that's what the Bible says, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but if that's what, and a lot of people say it like that, if that's what the Bible truly says, then it's saying it's healthy to handle today's worries, which means you have to deal with the unpositive stuff. But Jesus does talk about do not worry. He just straight up says, do not worry.
Okay, what if someone's idea of not worrying then is to say, what is something that I can get out of this? And that's a positive thing. I think we're fixating on the word positive as this happy, joyful, okay, this is good for me. That's not necessarily what they mean, but we're talking about.
That is what the world thinks of is positive.
Well, I think the challenge should be let's reframe what we mean, what the word positive should mean.
Because then we're getting into deconstructing words in our culture and language, whereas we can just keep it simple and use the correct language and say, we have to embrace the negative.
Which is a positive thing.
No.
It's a healthy thing. Or are we just practicing?
No, this is a podcast.
Oh.
Because I'm
use the word
finally, I know, but I'm coming to the understanding now, and I'm landing my plane, as it were, of finally trying to be able to explain to someone who says, just be positive, of the reason why you can't just be positive is because it's unhealthy. And the physical depiction of overweight people being idolized in our culture as, quote, healthy because they're, quote, body positive is a perfect concrete example of how negative it is to embrace only the positive. And I don't like saying that because it's just a flip on what you said, but it is unhealthy to only focus on the positive. I've seen it in a friend's friend when I was staying with the Dorys in their house, and their friend just spiraled down into alcoholism. But he was the most positive focused person I possibly have ever known.
What was it that caused him to spiral?
It was losing his family.
I guess, in the midst of him being positive, what was the recipe that he was not? What was ignoring the recipe that he was
ignoring the negative. He was ignoring the sadness. He was ignoring the pain. He was ignoring the hurt.
So I think then it's okay to be positive, but not ignore the hurt. Be like, okay, I'm going to get through this. This is just a period in time where I have to suffer. Because I remember when my ex-husband left, and I just knew it was the end. I remember just thinking to myself, I need to sit in this pain, but I know it's not going to last forever.
That's the hope that got you through.
That's the positive hope.
No, it's not. I
think it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous to say, don't think positively. I think it's just dangerous to say that as is only think positive. Say only think positively. I think there's a middle ground. There's a way to orchestrate this in a way that's beneficial, but it doesn't leave people stuck in that, is this ever going to end mindset?
A battery is a good example because it has a positive side and a negative side. And that's where we get the words positive and negative from. Positive is just a charge. But a battery can't operate if it's only got one charge on it. They both have to be working together. So we have to change. What we have to reframe is our perception of the world, our mindset, our worldview, of changing it to say, oh, I can't just be positive. I have to have both. I have to embrace both, because positivity is not going to bring growth. The negative side is going to bring growth.
I think
the positive is really negative, the hope.
You're not really going to grow.
I'm not saying that.
Because that causes depression and anxiety.
Right. And with that, we have to recognize sometimes I have to stop focusing on the positive. And I need to look at the hurt and the pain in my life. Mm-hmm. And I have to learn, how am I going to accept this negative? How am I going to accept what I don't want? How am I going to accept the positive? And that's what the problem is. People, and it's common, it's publicly accepted in our society to not accept negative, only accept positive. And as soon as someone says, you know what, accept the negative because that's a positive mindset, no, they missed it. It's healthy. Mm-hmm. It's being the whole person, the true person, the whole battery.
Well, I agree with that, because it's in the times of pain where we really seek after Christ, seek after God. Those things are essential. And if you're right, if we do just say, be positive, we're not seeking after God. We're not saying, okay, what do I need to learn from this situation? I agree with that. But I also agree there has to be a hopefulness within that time where you're like, this is not going to last forever. This moment right now, yes, I have to go talk to my boss and it's uncomfortable. But you know what? Here's a positive thing. I believe what I'm saying is accurate. I believe it's going to be received well, because that positive mindset is what's going to propel you to knock on the door and say, whether or not your voice is shaking, this is what I have a problem with, boss.
Yes. And all that to say, to move forward with that, holding on to the balance in taking that negative or whatever the hurt with you as you're hoping to move forward. That's why hope is such much better word, because that's hope includes what you're saying, looking for the aiming for the positive while bringing the negative along with you. Because otherwise, if you leave the negative behind and you only focus on the positive, you're going to be throwing hope in the trash. Even though you think you're hoping, like knowing, you know what, there's an end. This pain is not going to last forever. That right there is acknowledging there is pain.
Well, you don't have hope if you don't have pain. Pain brings out that hopefulness.
Yes, and I didn't say that's not right or whatever. I'm just saying the negative or the positive is overly worshipped. And we have to stop thinking, just be positive, just be positive. We have to be thinking, where's my hope? Okay, where's the hope?
What would you say to someone whose dream is to go to the Olympics and they've lost every single race and they're falling further and further behind? What would you say to them?
How long do you want to do this?
It's exhausting. I don't know how much more I have left in me.
When you started this, how long did you want to do this?
Until I made it to the Olympics.
All right. So here's the reality. Very few people ever make an Olympic team. And then on top of that, every 4 years, one person out of those very few people become Olympic champions. So the reality is you are not going to win. That's the reality. It's reality, positive or not. Now, Stephen Bradbury, Australian speed skater, great example. Because the reality is he had no shot in the dark. But out of the few people that made that, I think it was 2002 in Salt Lake. Maybe it was in Canada. I can't remember. Maybe it was Vancouver, 2010. I'll have to look it up. But the reality is he didn't have a shot in the dark. But out of the few people that actually made that those Olympic teams, he's the one that won. And he did not get there on positivity.
I bet he had a lot of people in his life speaking positive things into him.
He also had 3 of the world's best in front of him fall down right before the finish line.
Oh, how lucky was that?
And that's, I've sure you've heard people say better lucky than good.
No, well, I think speed skating is one of those sports where you have to have the skill set, plus you have to play a clean game too. So it is one of those.
But it's happened in other sports too.
Yes, it happened.
I won't get into that, but like when you look at, there is a lot of chance, but as a believer, there's also a lot of divine appointments, and we don't know. See, I think this hopefully brings conclusion to, like, what I'm trying to explain is that we are on this spaceship called life, and you ultimately have no control over where the gas tank runs empty on your spaceship.
Disagree, because you can keep filling up.
No, because one day, like we went to Carolyn's funeral yesterday, one day this first life is all going to be over, and you have no choice when that is. And I forget who I was talking to a couple days ago, but I was like, I looked at him. Oh, I think he was at the restaurant. I think it was Stavi. I looked at him and I said, nobody escapes death. Everybody has to come to the point, whether they want to or not, that it all ends. And that's, in most people's eye, a negative thing.
Well, it's just a thing. It's a reality.
Exactly. And that's where, from our human perspective, it's almost like chance. We have to be able to accept that we aim to do what we want to do, and there's a chance it's going to happen. Granted, your effort and your attitude, your mindset will help get you closer to that goal, but in the long run, you ultimately have no control over whether what you want to happen is going to happen or not.
I don't agree with that, because you do have some control. You do have some control. You can make choices that direct you to that goal. And
you have control.
So in psychology, this has actually been proven. if you want something to happen and you meditate on it over and over and over again, eventually you will start to make choices that will naturally start that what end result to unfold.
But if you do all of that, does it guarantee the end result to happen?
It will guarantee, I think, some version of that to happen.
But can you guarantee that whatever it is you want to happen?
Like, we won't get hit by a bus.
Exactly. And that's my point.
But you do have a choice in either how close you get to it or it happening, because you eventually start making choices for yourself and bring people that will help guide you to that end result into your life, because that's your mindset.
So you have control, or at least some control over how that path unfolds or how you get down that journey, but you still have no guarantee that you can cross that finish line.
Well, tomorrow's not guaranteed.
Exactly. But what you just said right now is a negative thought in society's mind.
It's not a negative thought. It's a reality.
And that's what I'm saying.
There's songs. That's not a negative. There's songs all over the radio. Let's dance like there's no tomorrow. Like, that's a positive thought in some people's minds.
Which, that brings me full circle to what I'm trying to say is, when you only embrace positivity, you're pushing aside that reality. We have to bring reality back into our thinking as a culture.
I would agree with that. And I think a lot of reframing needs to happen.
How do you end a podcast?
Peace out, bro.
Is that how you do it?
See you next week.
Juice Ortiz, trash speed skater, trying to do the impossible at 40 years old with Amy Emerson, co-host Amy Emerson here.
Hello.
Glad you're here. I have no idea how to end a podcast, but I think that should be something we look up.
I think we should start looking at our podcasts. Yeah.
Especially if we have people.
Some of them end abruptly too. I think it depends on
it's just like, boom, over.
You can't make it the same way every single time.
Can you do me a favor, start researching that?
Sure, love. Yes, my king. I would love to do that.
Podcast over.